Film revolves around a skinny and geeky man named Casey Davies, who works as an accountant. Casey's coworkers dislike him because he's awkward and he audits their expenses. He lives alone with his pet dog named Dachshund. One night, he notices that Dachshund is out of food, so he goes out to the market. On his way to the store, he's approached by two men on a motorcycle. One of them oddly asks Casey if he has a gun. Later, Casey walks home with the food when the men on the motorcycle, along with a few other assailants, again approach him. Fearing for his life, Casey attempts to run away, but they manage to catch him and beat him unconscious before robbing him. Some days later, Casey wakes up in the hospital. He goes through his voicemails and learns no one has asked to see how he's doing except for his boss, Grant, who tells him to take as much time off as he needs. After the traumatizing incident, Casey becomes fearful for his life, and after watching a gangster movie, he feels compelled to buy a gun. He goes to a gun store and tries to ask for a handgun, but he's told that he must go through the background check and waiting period before he can actually get it. On his way back home, he comes across a karate dojo and decides to visit. When he enters, he sees Sensei teaching his class. After the lesson, Casey talks to Sensei and asks if he can join. Sensei invites him to the next day's class for a free trial to see for himself. When asked about the reason behind joining a karate class, Casey lies to him about wanting to stay healthy and fit. Before leaving, Casey also meets Anna, the only female member of the dojo who is a brown belt and gives classes to kids. She is cold in nature and hence immediately chastises him for wearing shoes on the mat. Casey begins his lessons starting as a white belt. At the dojo, he meets Henry, who is friendly to him and is also working his way to a promotion in color ranks. During Casey's first lessons, he's taught how to punch with his feet. He spars with another student, Kenneth, who knocks Casey off his feet on the first try. However, Casey also manages to get a good punch kick here and there. Casey considerably improves his performance by the time the promotion ceremony arrives. Henry confides in Casey that he overheard Sensei talking to someone and thinks he's getting promoted to black belt. Before promoting his students, Sensei tells them about the dojo's late grandmaster, who was killed after being shot, and ever since then, the sensei believes that people who use guns are weak. Sensei also tells everyone about a move that only the grandmaster knew, wherein he could kill a man by pushing his index finger through his skull. Impressed by Casey's progress, Sensei upgrades Casey to a yellow belt. However, Sensei doesn't promote Henry and confers a black belt to another dojo member named Thomas instead. It's revealed that Sensei trains high-rank holders in the special night class. After his promotion, Casey begins to develop more confidence. However, one afternoon while buying groceries, Casey gets in trouble with a thug. The man intimidates him and knocks the groceries out of his bag. Casey ends up driving home crying. This decreases Casey's morale severely and he begins to wonder if he's even worthy of a yellow belt. Sensei eventually takes notice and takes him to his office, urging him to open up. Casey eventually comes clean about getting beaten up by the thug and his motivation behind joining the karate class. He admits he is terrified of men larger than him and that he wants to become that which intimidates him. Sensei tells him that he did the right thing by joining the karate class, but there's a mental component to improving oneself. Sensei advises him to listen to metal instead of adult contemporary music. He also advises Casey against learning French and asks him to learn German instead, because he feels Germany is stronger and more capable. Moreover, Sensei tells him that in every facet of life, what you eat and how you interact with others, everything should be as masculine as possible. Sensei also invites Casey to check out the night classes. Casey takes his advice and makes several changes in his life. One day, Casey gets a message from Grant saying that he needs to come back to work since it has been 2 months. At work, Casey starts to utilize an assertive demeanor, which makes him come off as an arrogant man. When Grant invites Casey to have dinner with him and his wife, he punches Grant in the throat, saying a boss can't be friends with people working under him. He then talks to the guys in the break room and tells them about his manly action. He also insults them, but still gets them on his side. Casey is fired, but he continues to follow Sensei's advice and decides to stop petting his dog to make him stronger. He also starts going to the night class and finds Henry there, even though he was not invited. Henry feels betrayed by Casey by showing up without telling him. When the class starts, Sensei calls Henry up for a demonstration and deliberately breaks Henry's arm at the elbow. He then chastises Henry for showing up in class without invitation before expelling him from the dojo. One night, Sensei calls Casey to tell him that he has spotted one of the bikers that attacked him. He meets Sensei at a bar where the latter orders Casey to go confront him. Casey follows the man, who is very drunk, to a parking garage where he appears to be going to a motorcycle. Casey ends up hitting the man in the stomach, causing him to fall and hit his head on the pavement, making him bleed. Sensei comes out and for some reason starts recording the incident. Casey then takes the man's keys and sees that he was going to a regular bicycle and not a motorcycle. It turns out Sensei lied to him about the man's identity. Casey returns home in horror, only to find Dachshund on the floor unconscious. He takes him to the hospital, but the doctor tells Casey that the dog died from what appears to be a kick to his ribs. However, there was blood found on his teeth, meaning he bit whoever attacked him. After becoming certain that Sensei killed his dog, Casey goes back to the dojo and deliberately breaks all the rules, including eating, drinking, and wearing shoes on the mat to piss off Sensei. When Sensei shows up, Casey accuses him of killing his dog. Sensei denies his involvement, but Casey is sure that he killed his dog and threatens to leave the dojo. But Sensei blackmails him with the footage, forcing him to stay. Casey goes for another night class where Sensei brings him, Anna, Thomas, and Kenneth out for a motorcycle run. Casey rides with Anna, who approaches an undercover cop in the same way that Casey was approached earlier. The cop shoots Anna in the leg, and before anything else goes wrong, Casey uses his moves to attack the cop, but he ends up killing him by slamming his head against a fire hydrant. Sensei chastises Anna for not asking the man if he has a gun, just like the ones that mugged Casey. Sensei tells Casey that he has earned a red stripe on his belt for taking a life, and he notes that Anna has one too. Casey takes Anna home, and she tells him that early on when she started out in the dojo, she held back because they were never going to take her seriously as a woman. The champion at the time attacked her in the dressing room, and she strangled him to death with his own belt. She thanks Casey for taking her home, but tells him not to return to the dojo. Now, having grown more concerned, Casey goes back to the dojo to do some more digging. He discovers that the dojo has a crematorium and also finds Henry's body having been hanged by his own belt. There are also tapes, including one of Casey's mugging. It confirms that Sensei, Anna, and Thomas were the ones who attacked him, with Thomas being the one who knocked him out. It was part of some kind of ploy for Sensei to get others like him to turn their lives around. After leaving, Casey notices the pickup truck from the thug outside the grocery store, and he chops the left mirror off and leaves a dent in it. Later on, we see Sensei find Henry's body and throw it in the crematorium. Casey approaches Sensei the next day and tells him flat out that he's going to kill him. He also calls him by his real first name, Leslie, just to provoke him, especially since he earlier mocked Casey for having a feminine-sounding name. He also brings up how Sensei is blackmailing other former students into paying membership fees long after they leave. Casey challenges him to a duel to the death, which Sensei is confident he will win. The two suit up and bow, but Casey pulls a gun and puts a bullet in Sensei's head. During the night class, Casey takes over and leaves Sensei's body on the floor for others to see. He tells the students that he killed Sensei with the finger punch technique that the Grandmaster supposedly knew. Before he continues, he tells the students to hold out their hands. He sees bite marks on Thomas's wrist, confirming that it was he who killed Casey's Dachshund. He brings his new German Shepherd out, now having trained him and learned to command him in German. The dog proceeds to rip out Thomas's throat. Casey then gives Anna the black belt and puts her in charge of the dojo, where she promises to display a more compassionate form of fighting. As the movie ends, Casey goes on to teach the kids.
Make sure you subscribe to Short Movies and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this.